Today we'll be working with strings. You should be reading Chapter 8 in your textbook. Section 8.1 deals with null-terminated strings, which is kind of the old way to do it, and 8.2 with the standard string class. Strings look like arrays of characters, but they're really not. A string in its old form is an array that has extra spaces at the end, and so to indicate where that end is, you put a null terminator in. You can see the examples here. To get around this, a more modern version of strings is to include the string header file and then create string objects. So you can declare variables as strings, string 1, string 2, string 3. You can put strings of text immediately into them, no problem. But these strings aren't arrays. They're large objects. The data, the words, are part of it, but there are functions as well that belong to the objects. Once you've created string objects, you can do things like add them together, which simply means to concatenate or join the strings together. You can construct strings that are empty, or strings that contain characters in them at the time that you declare them. With the insertion operator, you can print out a string. With the extraction operator, you can read data into a string, but watch out. The extraction operator stops reading as soon as it hits white space. So if you wanted to read a first and last name, you might have some difficulty because the extraction operator would only read the first one in, stopping at the white space. There's a cool function, though, called getLine that will read an entire line of input, everything up to the new line. That way you get both first and last names. So getLine is passed an input stream and a string object, and it reads everything in the stream all the way to the new line and puts it in. If you want to read one character, you can use the get function to read one character at a time. Now here's an example that counts the number of words in a document. You may have to pause it and examine this more carefully, but notice the while loop gets a single character, and if it's not a new line character, it examines it to see what's going on. If it's a white space character, then it knows it's not in a word and puts in word to false. If it's not a white space character, then it might add one to the word count if it's the first non-white space it encounters. Take a look at this one on your own time, as it is rather ingenious. Now we're going to take a look at some other functions that are used to process strings. One of the ways that we can do this is to employ things like a length function to find out how long a string is, and in this example from your textbook you see that. The for loop looks at the last name to determine how long it is and prints out each letter in the string one by one in array format. The length function is just one of many functions that are out there. This is a list of some more commonly used ones, and in the example that follows, we'll take a look at the substring function that you see highlighted above and the find functions below. John Quincy Adams is the string. We're trying to break this one down into its first name and middle name and last name. So the first thing we do is use the find function. It finds the first occurrence of a space, which is at location 4. After that, we can identify the first name by starting at location 0 and taking a substring that includes 4 characters. So now we've captured the first word, John, and we can look for the second one by finding out where the second one starts. To do this, we'll use the find first not of function. This uses our punctuation variable at the top, and anything that's not a punctuation character is going to stop this search. It stops and puts a value in index 1. So index 1 will tell us where the middle name begins. Once we have that information, we can go ahead to find out where the middle name ends. In this slide, we use the find function. We're looking for a space, but we're going to start at the location of where the middle name began. It finds the space at location 11, and that is returned as index 2. Now we know where the middle name begins and ends. Can you figure out how to write the code to capture that and store it in the middle variable? You may want to pause this and do that. The middle name is a substring. It begins at index 1 and goes for how many characters? Subtract the two index values and you'll find that out. So now you know how to find the first and the middle name. You might take this to Janice and see if you can write the code to find the last name as well. Once you've done that, I think you've pretty much mastered string functions. Thanks for watching.